Welcome in, everybody. It is a Saturday edition of Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason with the game plan to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. One, Mace, I don't think this is going to be like the last game for many reasons we'll get to. And two, I'm not overlooking the Raiders. I don't think Broncos country should be. And you and I both know that team is not overlooking a divisional opponent.
You don't overlook a divisional opponent. One thing that is historically true about divisional play is that familiarity typically narrows the gap between teams. I mean, it may not have felt that way when the Broncos were a third or fourth place team and the Chiefs were winning 9 consecutive division titles, but think of how many Broncos-Chiefs games in that time were actually one-score games, even though the Broncos were having one losing season after another. So that's just something to think about as you get into this game. And think about the game last month, the Raiders descending and mired in last place, as it turned out, about to dismiss 2/3 of their coordinators within weeks. And all it took was some gusty winds, and you ended up with a 10-7 game. One that it didn't really feel like that there was much threat of losing, I think, through the second half for the Broncos, but one in which they struggled mightily to get away. I was talking about this Friday morning on the radio out in Las Vegas, that certainly you had weather turning it into weather being the great equalizer. And basically the Broncos unable to pull away from the Raiders. And in divisional play, where you often have teams that know each other well and you have that familiarity that narrows the gap, and then you throw in a windy night, and it led to a game like that. And you won't have conditions like that at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, but you have to be on guard of stuff happening in a game like this. There's a reason why you have the cliche throw out the records in rivalry games. And it's not just because of the emotion involved and everyone being a little bit more jacked up. It's because you do get some wild results sometimes. Hey, ask the Chiefs a couple of Christmases back about going up against the Raiders, right? I mean,
right.
And they found themselves on the business end of an upset. These things can happen. So the Broncos had best be on their P's and Q's against a team that looks a little bit different, because you have 2/3 of their coordinators, including former Broncos special teams coordinator Tom McMahon, who are no longer with the Raiders, who have been dismissed by Pete Carroll since then.
Things are going to look a little bit different, so you got to be ready for that. Didn't Sean Payton talk about that this week?
Indeed he did. Here's Sean Payton discussing the new coordinators and how things have changed in Las Vegas.
You know, on offense, look, just having worked against Pete for so many years, you know, there's a certain amount of stress you put on your defense when you're throwing it maybe too, you know, and he wants to establish a running game, and all of that goes into complementary football, time of possession, those type of things. So, you know, it's one thing that I think you can look. Now, I don't, you know, you're still preparing for what you saw last week, what you've been seeing, and then from a kicking game standpoint, the same way. You know, you dive into as much film as you can, and you get your team ready.
Of course, it's Greg Olsen now calling the plays for the Raiders.
Again,
as he has in the past. This is his third go-round instead of Chip Kelly. Early returns on things. I mean, certainly last week against the Los Angeles Chargers, Raiders only 156 total yards against the Chargers, 125 through the air, only 31 on the ground. They have not gotten Ashton Genty untracked at all. I think if you're looking for true disappointments on an individual basis about the Las Vegas Raiders this year, you'd have to start with the inability to get Ashton Genty going. I'm just going to give you some numbers here, Cease, and to describe. And really, I think this sums up the disappointment for the Raiders, and like one thing that maybe goes against expectation here, and this numbers here. 3.3, 3.5, 3.2, 3.2, 1.2, 2.9, 2.1. Those are the last 7 games of average yardage per carry for Ashton Genty. He only has one 100-yard rushing game, and that came against the Chicago Bears back in week 4. Last week, 31 yards on 15 carries. The week before, 50 yards on 17 carries. The week before that, 7 yards on 6 carries. So certainly he's failed to launch. I think some of it is certainly there are issues up front for the Raiders.
Have a terrible line. You could easily say they have the worst line in the league.
I think that's really where it starts, and whether it's Pete Carroll still coaching this team or somebody else, they've got to rebuild this from the inside out. And I think that's where it's going. That's where it's probably going to start. And I think one thing that is telling Cease, and I think one thing to look out for is they are consciously trying to get him the ball in the passing game, because the last 3 games, Cease, he's had 6, 8, and 6 receptions. Now, he hasn't quite gotten untracked in terms of his production, 4.5, 7.3, 5.0 yards per catch. But what that tells me, especially in the last 2 games, he's had 25 and 21 total touches. So they're starting to get the memo about, all right, we simply need to feed Ashton Genty in much the same way that Tennessee, when it had Derrick Henry, finally figured out in that second year, okay, he gets better with more work. He's a guy that we can ride and just keep feeding him, and he's going to be fine. And Ashton Genty is one of those backs that I think he's one of those rare backs that you can just keep feeding him, and he's going to be fine. And I think when you see the last 2 games in terms of his workload, this is Las Vegas kind of figuring that out, and Greg Olsen sort of starting to figure that out. So I expect they're going to get Ashton Genty the ball 20 to 25 times at least in this game.
Yes.
But I would expect if they can't get it going on the ground because of these issues up front, and they do get a little bit of a break with DJ Jones being out, given his excellence against the run, I expect them to get him the ball outside in the passing game to try to work some screens, to try to just use that as a way to try to uncork their prized rookie and try to get him involved.
And they are not going to be held back if it's 2 yards a carry for 12 or 15 carries. If it's 15 carries for 40 yards, they'll give him another 10 carries. And those 10 carries might be for 100. That's the type of back he is. And you don't want him to you don't want this to be his breakout game. He did have the 100-yarder, as you mentioned. You don't want this to be his breakout game, because the dirty little secret, and we saw it against Washington, you can run against this team.
Well, here's the interesting thing that I'm wondering here for the Raiders. Okay, so you saw last week Cliff Kingsbury, who knows Vance Joseph very well, obviously going back to their time together in Arizona, got the run game going. What else was he doing? He got Zach Ertz going. Now the thing that Greg Olsen does not have at his disposal that Cliff Kingsbury did. He doesn't really have a mobile quarterback, and he doesn't have the array of pass catching targets. So Olsen isn't going to be able to mimic what Kingsbury did. The conversation when we get to the Packers game And the Jaguars game is going to be different because they can replicate elements of what the Commanders did.
So can the Chiefs and Chargers.
Yes. And that's why the 4 games to end the season have the potential to be very interesting challenges for this Broncos defense. The Raiders can't do all that. So they don't, the quality of, or the lack thereof of their wide receiving core means they don't have the same ability to spread the Broncos out horizontally. But Brock Bowers, how they use him, that does have the potential to clear out the box a little bit if they pull him out wide and you have a safety or a linebacker. If they use Bowers and they get a linebacker out of the box, does that set things up for the Raiders to get Genty up the middle? But then it becomes, can their O-line win the battles up front? And that's where they have a chance to. That's where I think they'll fall short, because I think the Broncos, their D-line does win those battles up front. So I don't think it looks like the way it did last week. But I think they'll try. I do think they're going to try.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they'll have the same success as Washington did, because they don't have the personnel. I mean, there's not a Laramie Tunsil up front for Las Vegas like Washington had. So Greg Olsen may try a few elements, but I don't think he has the material to work with to make it work. But again, when you get to the Packers and going forward, there's better personnel to take elements of what Cliff Kingsbury did last week and try to challenge the Broncos deep with that.
Yeah, and Brock Bowers is going to be a problem. I mean, they don't have a Terry McLaurin. They don't have a Deebo Samuel. But they got a Brock Bowers who can be Zach Ertz plus. Yeah. With that kid. He's an amazing talent. Hate the Raiders, but my God, Brock Bowers is so good.
But you can tailor your entire coverage package to him if you're the Broncos. And I think
Shanae Barron and somebody else.
Yes, this is like stopping Brock in terms of what you're doing in coverage. Stopping Brock Bowers is priority A, B, and C, and especially with Michael Mayer out. So they can't even discombobulate you with the same kind of 2 tight end sets that sometimes they would use. Michael Mayer didn't practice this week, so he's not playing. So they've got a hand tie behind their back there. If they had Mayer and Bowers, that they could do some interesting things, but they don't have that at their disposal this game.
Mm-hmm. How will the Broncos play this? And what is Vance Joseph expecting, Mace, from his team this week? We're fixing to find out, right?
Yeah, we are. I thought you were going to us. I thought you were going to the Ramos spot. Sorry. That's why I was pausing there. I thought.
Oh, well, we do have a BJ.
The way you were setting up that is, I thought you were going to the Ramos spot. That's why I was like, I thought.
Oh, I was going to go to the VJ clip here.
I thought it was a tease, but let's hear from VJ, because even on Thursday, he still wasn't really happy when he looked back at his defense's performance last Sunday.
We played okay, in my opinion. I wasn't totally pleased with our tackling. We missed like 10 tackles for like 45 yards, But the third downs early wasn't very good. We settled down and made some plays, but we can play better, Obviously, after every game we play, we watch the tape and we're honestly, what's good, what's bad. If it was bad, we fix it. If it was good, we celebrate it. So no different there, but we can obviously play better, and we have played better, and I expect us to play better.
That's about as mad as VJ's going to get. But when he says we played okay, he was choosing his words carefully because he didn't seem happy.
I expect us to play better. Yes.
That's his version of bring my shuttle.
Yeah. Well, the good news for the Broncos and Broncos fans is that the players expect to play better too. I mean, I like to take the temperature of the team after a game. That's why I prefer to go to the locker room rather than just stay in the press conference room. Is I want to find out a little bit more about how guys feel, and not just the players at the podium, but I really want to gauge what the mood is. the defensive guys had the same sort of post-victory ambivalence that I've gotten used to hearing from a lot of the offensive guys after some games this year. So
They know.
they know that that's one thing I really like about this team and the guys on it is that they get it. They know when they've had a performance, even when they win, they know when they've had a performance that isn't up to snuff. And they're real about it. And they're self-aware enough to know I've got to do better. And they don't point fingers. They look at themselves. I loved it after the Colts game when it would have been, very easy to put it on one guy. It would have been very easy to just put it on Dondre Tillman for the leverage. And every guy in that locker room was pointing at something he did. Like nobody did this. They all did this. And I mean, you look back at moments that told you that this team could have a pretty good season, the signs along the way they reacted to that Colts loss immediately after it, that's a sign that told you this team had the right stuff. So and I like that. And I like the fact that after they win, you have the general sense of, okay, we got to do this better. If we really want to achieve all of our goals, this isn't good enough. So I don't think VJ had to do a lot of cussing in the meeting.
No.
Because I think it's the players, they knew it. They didn't need to get the invective from the coaches because they understood. They didn't need the external reinforcement. They knew that it wasn't good enough. So,
and that's the culture that has been established with Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. It is Orange and Blue today, our Saturday game plan show. We got a lot to talk about with this offense, but first, now, how about that word from our sponsor?
At Ramos Law, they believe in building long-term relationships with their clients. Wondering if you have enough insurance? Send them your coverage information, and they'll review it for you absolutely free. Dr. Joseph Ramos spent years treating injured patients in the Denver General Emergency Department, making him a true injury expert. Ramos Law, uniquely built to fight for you.
This offensive discussion begins with Bo Nix, a little digging with our friends with the Sumer Sports Brain. The Las Vegas Raiders give it up to heavy personnel. That'll be our RJ talk.
Yeah.
But they also give up 30 yards a catch on corner routes.
Ooh.
Corners, crossers, and slants are the way that you can beat this team. Pat Bryant is going to play. We got that good news on Friday.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this passing game. It's looked better the last couple of weeks. Mason, I personally expect it to look better this week as well.
Look better throughout the game, hopefully.
Yes.
That's another thing. Like we saw it come alive in 2 minute last Sunday. And of course, the best drive that they had was in overtime. To the surprise of nobody who's watched this team this year, nobody who's watched Bo Nix this year, they came out in overtime, a high-pressure situation, and it was bing, bing, bing down the field. Like, you're surprised when this offense doesn't come through in a high-pressure situation. You just want the offense and Bo Nix the rest of the game to start looking like it does at the end. I put the stat out there earlier this week. Number 26 in passer rating outside of the last 2 minutes of each half in overtime. Number 6 in passer rating in the last 2 minutes of each half in overtime. Like he's Josh Allen when it's late in games, and he's Russell Wilson 2022 in the rest of games. Like, okay, all right, let's
change that.
Let's be more of. Be for the rest of the game what you are late in the game. Now, I think some of that is, incumbent upon Sean Payton to maybe go tempo a little more often, and maybe sub, not sub as quite as often, not have so many moving parts between plays, in the rest of the game. They maybe go with the same personnel group a little bit more often. So anyway,
I wouldn't mind seeing that. The last thing you want your quarterback to be thinking as he's in the huddle or breaking the huddle is who's on first.
yeah, simplify, keep it
They've been
KISS.
better about that. They've
They're
been
getting a little
better.
better. They're getting a
Yeah,
little
I'm
better.
not saying they're perfect, but it seems like that's coming around. And honestly, that kind of back and forth would be natural between a young quarterback and his head coach in year 2.
Play to your strengths right now, because
Sure. Pretty good strengths.
he is a quarterback in year 2, and you shouldn't expect Bo Nix to be all the way there. Here's the thing, because there's always the comparison with Drew Brees, blah blah blah.
Sure.
Sean Payton didn't get a hold of Drew Brees until Drew's 5th season in the league.
And Drew was already really good. I know that they had taken Phillip Rivers, and I know he had the shoulder injury from John Lynch, but like Drew Brees was good. Don't ever have anyone tell you like, oh, he's stuck with the Chargers. No, he actually, when Phillip Rivers was drafted, Drew Brees had the alert of like, I had better be better, and he was.
Drew Brees already had a Pro Bowl season under his belt in 04. And now they
People
drafted.
try to rewrite history like he was terrible with the Chargers, and he wasn't.
Well, they drafted Phillip Rivers because the first 3 seasons for Drew Brees on balance were kind of mid, and Doug Flutie did get some games in 03, and Brees got the nod in 04 because Phillip Rivers were still young and then developing. And then it was in 04 that Brees just went to the next level and he made the leap. And he held Rivers off for 2 seasons. He was terrific in 04. He was pretty good in 05. The Chargers took a step back from 12-4 to 9-7. But he basically did well enough to hold Rivers off for 2 years. And Rivers, with almost any other situation, Rivers would have been starting by 05, by his second year. But Drew Brees earned the right and was playing well enough to hold him off in that second year. So, yeah, like Drew Brees by the time Drew Brees got to New Orleans, he'd already had one exceptional year and one pretty good year under his belt. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a myth that Drew Brees was nothing in San Diego.
Right.
He became something in those last 2 years with the Chargers. And so that's the thing. Like Drew Brees, he was 01 through 05. He comes to New Orleans and he's already learning offense. He's 27 years old when he gets to New Orleans. Bo Nix, he's in year 1, year 2. So you can't expect Bo to do everything that Drew Brees could do right away in Sean Payton's offense. So I think that it's just okay to be mindful development-wise of where he is, and you don't have, throttle back a little bit, give him what he can handle, play to what he can do best now, what works best for him. And some of it can be a little of the KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You can, sometimes you just have to simplify a little bit. And I've always believed the best coaches are the ones that do adapt to the talents and gifts of the players that they have on hand. And so I think you mentioned it. There's been a little bit of an adaptation, a little bit of meeting Bo more where he is. And I think if there's more of that, this Broncos team has its best shot to maximize this and achieve some great things. Because here's the deal. You have the core of this team that appears to be set to stay together for a while. And you can say, oh, the window should be open for a little bit. You never know when your best shot is. For all we know, the best shot is right now. Ask Detroit about that. Detroit, its best shot might have been 2 seasons ago.
Ask the Bills about that. Ask Dan Marino about that. Like, there's no wait. It's our turn. No, it's not.
You never know when your best shot is. The best shot might be right now and you don't realize it. Mm-hmm. And so you can't think about the long... You can think about the development of Bo Nix, but you can't think too much about where he's going to be 3 years from now. You have to think about maximizing this shot that you have, because you're sitting here, you're 12 games into the season. You have the best record in football. Or I should say, you're a half game back of the Patriots. I'm sorry. The Patriots are a half game ahead of you. But you have control of your fate for home field advantage. You have fewer losses than any other team in football. You're in phenomenal shape. You have a real, tangible chance to get this franchise's 4th world championship. It's right there. And you can't assume that you're going to have as good a shot next year. You can't.
Right.
Because maybe this is the year the Chiefs are down and they come back up next year.
Maybe they get Kenyon Sadiq in the draft next year and they're back.
Maybe, how do you know the Chargers aren't roaring next year? This might be the year the Chargers are down with Jim Harbaugh because their 2 tackles are out. You look around. This might be the year that everything worked in your favor. That
Ravens down, Bengals down.
Yes, Ravens down, Bengals down, Bills a little bit down, Chiefs down, Chargers 2 tackles hurt. You don't know that whether this might not be the best shot. You don't know that. You don't know that. There could be better shots. This you never know when this might be the most that you are. Somehow this defense found another level in terms of the pass rush than it did last year, and that's amazing. But what does it look like next year? Vance Joseph might be somebody else's head coach next year, and while you feel pretty good if you hand the reins to Jim Leonard, how do you know that there isn't going to be some bumps in the transition, assuming he's the defensive coordinator, as he makes the transition from calling plays in college, as he did a couple of years ago, to doing so in the NFL? You don't know. You're probably gonna lose coaches off your staff. You might lose VJ. You might lose Davis Webb, right? That's just how it is. It's tough. You have to maximize this right now.
Yes, and 2 thoughts. Dennis Miller always said, you may never be more blank than you are right now.
Yes.
Whatever that blank is, richer, sexier, whatever. And then quarterback development's not a straight line.
Yeah.
And we got to realize that with Caleb Williams, with Drake May. Drake May is the MVP level play this year.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's always going to be the case. God forbid some team thinks they need Josh McDaniels as their head coach. Another Mace viral tweet that I saw a couple weeks ago when somebody was suggesting Josh McDaniels, nothing wrong with Josh McDaniels.
People need to stop being stupid and actually have memories that go beyond
a year.
Whoever put that out, nostalgia to that guy is what he had for breakfast. It's just ludicrous. I don't see why Josh McDaniels isn't a coaching candidate. His resume is why he's not a viable coaching candidate.
His reputation.
He's had 2 bites at the apple, and actually he's screwed over 3 franchises. And with the Raiders, my goodness, ask the Raiders. They had to have a literal meeting where the players aired their grievances to his face. That's how bad it got. Where have you ever heard that before? That they made him stand there and listen to all the things, all the problems that they had with him. And they fired him. And oh, by the way, when Antonio Pierce took over, they immediately got better. He had a winning record down the stretch. And then they made him the head coach, and it turned out that was a false positive. What I say about Antonio Pierce is right idea, wrong guy, as in it was the right idea, but they should have done that with Rich Bisaccia when he got them into the playoffs. I will never forget when Bisaccia took over for John Gruden. And remember, there's all the chaos around the Raiders.
Lots of controversy.
Because you had the Henry Ruggs thing a few weeks earlier. It was just
disaster.
The whole thing like it was a franchise that looked like it was falling apart in every way, and the Henry Ruggs thing and that tragedy with that accident and all that. And they come in to face the Broncos. And the thing I'll always remember is I looked on the Broncos sideline and I looked on the Raiders sideline for the national anthem. And I looked on the Broncos sideline and it was just guys were standing, but it was kind of disorganized. And I looked on the Raiders sidelines and everybody's like lined up on the sideline. It was like the old Bud Grant thing where everyone's like in formation. And I kept watching during the game, looking around the benches. And like with Vic, sometimes it was always a little bit chaotic because he's like trying to run the defense. And, sometimes it felt too big for Vic as head coach. He's a brilliant defensive coordinator, brilliant defensive play caller. I mean, he's one of the best in the last 30 years. There's a reason.
The booth, though.
Yeah. But it was, you could see and I thought, oh my goodness, this guy in a completely hellish situation that he stepped into has got this team organized on the other side after just walking in and being promoted. And I was very impressed with how Bisaccia was running that team. That's why I thought I would have given him the keys for a couple of years just to see what he could do. And instead, Mark Davis made a really terrible move. I mean, Mark Davis has made a lot of terrible moves running that team. Like it's, and I'll admit I thought Pete Carroll had a chance to get things right. I think a lot of us did. I thought this Raiders team would be about an 8 or 9 win team. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. What a mess.
Yeah, that's an absolute mess. Broncos need to take advantage. Their offense needs to take advantage. Let's hear from Sean Payton on RJ Harvey. You want to start the RJ conversation now, Mace?
Yeah, I mean, RJ Harvey, we've talked about earlier this week. I mean, this is a guy he's struggling. He's under 4 yards a carry this year, even though he's got a couple of huge explosive runs, 40 and 50 yards earlier this season. He's got a low success rate this year. What he is doing well is he's got a nose for the end zone and the red zone. So there are things you can build on, and the thing he's got going for him is clearly still has the confidence of his coaches and the organization. Sean Payton on RJ Harvey.
There's that saying, you haven't seen anything yet. And he was still had this rare running skill set that you're going to see and continue to. We knew he was really good with the ball in his hands, catching it, former quarterback. And so, he's being thrust into, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, Vegas is going through it with, Genty but like we, as coaches, identify, hey, how do we get him, even to where you're looking at it, how do we get him the touches he needs, and then Jaleel, even Tyler, and how do we manage that and make sure they're doing the things they do well? There's a little puzzle to it, but when it comes to, look, there's certain things he's got to be able to do in protection. All right, it doesn't mean he has to be our third down protecting back, but when we run a play on second, it can't just be handoffs when he's in there. And he's good with protection. He's put together well. He's smart. He's just quiet. You guys that have talked to him, you really got to poke him to get something out of him. But I think that's just his nature.
Actually, I love talking to RJ Harvey. And, maybe he's less quiet with us and more quiet just learning from the coaching staff.
Well, I think sometimes he's quiet with media. I think I'll say this. Sometimes he worries about the impact of what he's saying. And I think it's part of what happens sometimes with a young player, and you can be a little bit intimidated by the spotlight, and
any little thing you say can be viral.
And I think it's adjusting to that for him, and it can be intimidating. I think when he's going to grow into that, he's a good guy. Like when that confidence comes out in him, I think you're going to see. I think that's going to manifest itself over time in terms of how he answers questions and all that. And I think as he plays better, you're going to see that confidence come out. Now, Sean Payton talked about the pass protection as well, because he said, hey, he's got it. Like, he referred to it, and kind of the thing we talk about with Jaleel, he can't simply be out there and only taking a handoff. Like, he's going to have to step up and protect the passer, right? So I did ask Sean Payton about working on Friday, about kind of working 3 running backs. And he did say, like, he's got a bit more of a grasp on it this year, partially because, like, Tyler Bidet is, like, clearly the third down back. Like, so last year it was like Javonte he's a third down back, but he's also a primary back. And it was like you got Estime and Jaleel. Like, he's got a better idea on their roles. So it's like Tyler Bidet is third down, RJ is primary, Jaleel is relief. Like, so he said he's got kind of a better read on this trio than he did last year. So it's not as difficult for him to make the 3-man backfield work than it was last year. But he did right there talk about RJ and pass protection, said he's getting better. You and I have talked about how he's got the stoutness and he's got the build to be able to do it. The thing that has to come for him is growing in terms of identifying where the rush is coming from. He's got to be an extension of Bo's eyes. The best running backs in pass pro are extensions of the quarterback. Think back to when C.J. Anderson was here. And one of the things I remember in the locker room is how often C.J. was talking with Peyton Manning. And you'd see them in the locker room. You'd see them on the practice field talking. They worked a lot on protections.
And that was intentional.
Yes.
CJ said once Peyton was there, he knew he had to be the smartest guy next to him to get playing time, and that's why he was such a key piece for Super Bowl 50.
And it wasn't simply about being a productive running back. It was protections. Mm-hmm. It was his response. He knew if he could be the best at picking up the blitz, picking up the pass rush, he'd get on the field, and he'd stay on the field.
And he did.
That was his key to playing time. And with Sean Payton, if you learn how to be a pass protecting back, that's going to be your golden key to playing time. I mean, look, it kept Javonte Williams on the field last year, even when he was struggling to run the football. He was still getting a lot of reps because he was and remains an excellent pass protector. I mean, now that he's fully back from the knee injury, Dallas is getting to reap the rewards of him running the ball like he did as a rookie again and still being a great pass protector. It's, you know what, Chris Thomason and I were watching him Thursday night, and like, boy, if he'd run like that in Denver, like he would have gotten an extension if he'd run like that in Denver, but it didn't work out. But I'm happy for him because we all love Javonte.
He's a great guy.
Great guy. I mean, nothing but happiness for that guy. But yeah.
It'd be nice to get RJ Harvey going in this game, Mace, because again, from our friends at Sumer Sports, the heavy packages work against the Raiders. 3 tight end sets. They don't have 3 tight ends. But maybe a little Frank Crum, maybe a little Jumbo.
Yeah.
RJ Harvey and trap plays. Get this. On trap plays, the Raiders allow 9.475 yards per carry.
Wow.
So I wouldn't mind a trap play because it's going to get you a first down.
That is incredible.
That's incredibly bad.
It's going to average you nearly a first down.
Yeah, you want to boost RJ Harvey's numbers, give him a couple trap plays in this one. You can't do trap all the time.
No.
But if you can time a trap, Derek Wolf always used to talk about that. If you could time a trap play well, you're ear holing that defensive lineman, and he's got no shot. And that's a big play.
I mean, can you do one of those a quarter?
Maybe.
Like I think that's something you shoot for, right?
Yeah. Maybe
Can
throw in a little Frank Crumb and get out there.
I mean, if you can do one of those a quarter, all of a sudden you're talking about if you do one of those a quarter, you could, hey, you do it 3 times with RJ, you do it 1 time with Jaleel, right?
Jaleel will be very good at it. Very good.
I think if you do one of those a quarter, you're talking at the end of the day, RJ and Jaleel combining for 100. I think you've got them combined over 125 yards.
That's a great number.
And you're very, very happy with that.
Yep. Would love to see it.
It's something you're shooting for right now. And hope and you're getting that success rate up. RJ Harvey right now among 67 running backs with at least 50 carries, his success rate is second from the bottom, only ahead of our good friend guy we like, Bucky Irving. So, got to get that better.
Yes, we will see if the Broncos can do just that. All right, Mace, you feeling good on a Saturday? You ready to wrap this puppy?
I'm feeling good about the Broncos' chances in this game. I'm feeling good about a multi-score win in this game. That's another thing when I take the temperature of the locker room. These guys want a comfortable win. Riley Moss had the great comment about how these close wins are going to make him go bald by the time he's 35. But definitely a sense that I got in the locker room this week is they want to have a decisive win here. They want to have that the fact that they can win the close ones, it's great, and they know they're going to be in some tight ones going forward. And you and I have talked about the rigorous schedule that looms beyond this game when they close with Green Bay, Jacksonville, Kansas City, and the Chargers. Like, it gets bumpy after this one. But they'd like to have one where you get to the middle of the fourth quarter and you can kick back and smile a little bit. So that's what I'm expecting. I said 27-13 on Friday. I'm going to stick with that.
Okay. I could see like a 27-20 late touchdown, something like that.
So you've got it still being close. You got another one-score
late touchdown from the Raiders, you know what I mean? So like it's 20-13 and then they get one late, so it's 27-20.
But it's another one-score game.
That's what they've done, right?
You're sweating again. You're sweating again, man.
Until they don't do that, that's what I'm going to predict. So
I want to I want to have most of my story written before the end of the game, and then I can just throw some quotes in, and I can get done and have a dinner in a reasonable time. That's what I'm shooting for.
Okay, head out to Bouchon Bistro if you get a chance.
Okay,
it's in the Venetian, and tell Chef Peter I said hi because he's a big Broncos fan.
If I can get there, I will. I'm not sure I'll make it, but I'll try.
Okay. Mace, we're trying to build our YouTube channel. What a segue.
Oh, nice. Good job.
Professional. To do that, how can folks help us here on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss a vid. That's right. He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is a what? Yeah, it's a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?